In the previous 3 lessons, we have added, subtracted, and multiplied integers. So today we are going to be dividing integers. So the main point for multiplication is basically the exact same main point for division. So if you're dividing a positive number by another positive number, you get a positive answer. If you are dividing a negative number divided by another negative number, you will get a positive answer. Same thing. If you have a positive divided by a negative, if these two are different, you will get a negative number. So a positive divided by a positive will give you the positive. The negative divided by the negative equals a positive. And a positive divided by a negative equals a negative. These two are the same. They're both positive. And this one down here is the negative. Within this video, I am going to write the examples 2 different ways. If you can see, I wrote negative 10 divided by 5. I wrote it horizontally. And another way that you could see it would be if you write it in a fraction form, where it's negative 10 over negative 5. So in this example, we are dividing with the similar signs. So let's look at the first one. We have a negative 10 divided by a negative 5. So remember, a negative divided by a negative, you're going to get a positive answer. So how many times does 5 go into 10? The answer is 2. This is a positive 2. Now let's look at the next one. This is 6. A positive 6 divided by a positive 2. This is what we are used to seeing. So what is 6 divided by 2? Or how many times does 2 go into 6? The answer for that is 3. This is a positive 3 because a positive divided by a positive is a positive. Alright, now it's your turn. What I want you to do is to pause the video, try these 2 examples by yourself, and then unpause the video when you're ready to see the way that I've done it. Alright, so it looks like we are dividing by the same sign. So if we have a negative 35 divided by a negative 5, the answer is of course going to be positive. So what is negative? How many times does 5 go into 35? The answer for that is 7. How many times does 5 go into 35? 7 times. Now let's look at the next one. This is what we're used to seeing. A positive 21 divided by a positive 7. With this, we're trying to think, how many times does 7 go into 21? And since it's a positive divided by a positive, the answer is going to be a positive. So your answer is 3. 7 goes into 21 3 times. Now we're moving into the point where we are dividing with different signs. So let's look at the first example. We have a positive 64. We're dividing that by a negative 8. So we know a positive divided by a negative is always going to be a negative. So now we think, how many times does 8 go into 64? Or what is 64 divided by 8? The answer to that is 8. So 64 divided by negative 8 is equal to negative 8. Let's look at the second one. We have a negative 12 divided by a positive 3. And we know a negative divided by a positive is always going to be negative. So what is 12 divided by 3? Or how many times does 3 go into 12? The answer is 4 times. So negative 12 divided by 3 is equal to negative 4. Alright, now I want you to try it. Pause the video and unpause the video when you're ready to see what I have done. Alright, so it looks like we are dividing a positive 40 by a negative 10. So we know anytime positive divided by a negative is always going to be a negative. So what is 40 divided by 10? 40 divided by 10 is 4. So we know that 40 divided by negative 10 is a negative 4. And let's look at the second one. We have a negative 54 divided by a positive 6. So what is a negative divided by a positive? We know that that answer is always going to be a negative. So how many times does 6 go into 54? That answer is 9. So negative 54 divided by a positive 6 is equal to a negative 9. In this example, we are going to be evaluating expressions. By evaluating expressions, it basically means they are going to give us an example with variables in it. So let's look at the first one. It's 12 times y divided by x. So they're going to give us what x is. So up here, x is equal to 6, and y is equal to negative 3. So all that we're going to have to do is wherever we see an x, we plug in a 6. Wherever we see a y, we plug in a negative 3. So I could just quickly rewrite this first example right here as 12, and then wherever the y is, we put negative 3, divided by, and the x is a 6. So I'll just put that in real quick. So we have a 12 times a negative 3, which is equal to a negative 36. Then rewrite everything else that comes down with it. So now we have a negative 36 divided by a positive 6. So we know a negative divided by a positive is always going to be negative. So how many times does 6 go into 36? That answer is 6. So our final answer is negative 6. Let's look at the second one. If we have a negative 5 times x divided by a y, all we have to do is we can just completely rewrite it right now and plug in the numbers. For x, we have a positive 6, and for y, we have a negative 3. Now what I like to do in this instance first, if it is set up as a fraction, I like to solve the numerator first and then solve the denominator second. So if we have a negative 5 times a positive 6, remember a negative times a positive is a negative, so negative 5 times a positive 6 is 30. And all we would have to do is bring down this negative 3, since we haven't solved for it yet. So now we have a negative 30 divided by a negative 3. Remember, negative divided by a negative is always going to be positive. So what is 30 divided by 3? Or how many times does 3 go into 30? 3 goes into 30 10 times. And it's a positive 10. So our final answer is a positive 10. In this example, we are going to find the mean. By the mean, you probably have heard of it as the average. So to find the mean, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to add all the numbers. Then you divide that by the amount of numbers. So let's look at this example. If they've given us 5 numbers, we have 7, 3, 6, 2, and 7. All that we would have to do, the first thing is just add them all together. So if we have 7 plus 3 plus 6 plus 2 plus 7, that is the top part of that's the numerator part of the fraction where we're adding all the numbers together. Then we are going to divide by the amount of numbers that we have. So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 numbers. So this is the way that it should be set up. We have 7 plus 3 plus 6 plus 2 plus 7 all divided by 5. Now to solve, all that we would have to do is to add them together. So if we have 7 plus 3 is 10, plus 10 plus 6 is 16, 16 plus 2 is 18, 18 plus 7 is 25. So then we rewrite the denominator at the bottom. So now we have 25 divided by 5. Remember, this is a positive 25 divided by a positive 5. How many times does 5 go into 25? That answer is 5 times. So our final answer, the average of 7, 3, 6, 2, and 7 is 5.